All right, let's talk about those really powerful, sometimes totally overwhelming feelings that can pop up in our closest relationships. We're going to dive into Jessica Baum's amazing book, Anxiously Attached, to really get to the bottom of these feelings and, more importantly, find a path to feeling more secure in love.
You know, the author herself knows this feeling all too well. When she was 19, her boyfriend started pulling away, and it felt like her entire world was collapsing. That gut-wrenching anxiety, that terror of being left behind, it's not some personal flaw, it's a pattern. And understanding that pattern is the very first step to changing it.
So, what does this anxious feeling actually look like in real life? Let's break down some of the most common ways it shows up. Just take a look at these for a second. Do any of them sound familiar? That spike of panic when you see red but get no reply? Or that impulse to just keep calling until they pick up? These are the classic signs of what's called an anxious attachment style. Now, this is so important to get. If you recognize yourself in any of those behaviors, it does not mean you are broken or flawed. These are protective patterns. They are brilliant strategies your younger self came up with to avoid the one thing that felt the most dangerous, being abandoned. They're old wounds, not weaknesses.
Okay, so if these are things we learned, where on earth did we learn them? Well, to get to the answer, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, to our childhoods.
The whole foundation for this is something called attachment theory. Way back in the 1950s, a psychologist named John Bowlby figured out that the way our parents or caregivers responded to us when we were tiny, when we needed food or comfort or just connection, it literally wired our brains. It created a blueprint for what we expect from love for the rest of our lives.
And this blueprint is super common. Research shows that while a little over half of us have a secure attachment style, that means almost half of the population doesn't. You've got about a quarter of people who are anxious and another fifth who are avoidant. So if this is you, you are far from alone.
In the book, Baum uses this really beautiful concept to help us get a handle on this, little me. This is that young part of you that had to figure out the rules of the game. Little me learned exactly what to do, how to be, and what to hide in order to stay connected and feel safe.
So how did little me figure all this out? Well, if care was inconsistent, little me learned to be on high alert, always scanning for signs of trouble. If a parent was emotionally checked out, little me might have thought, it's my fault, I'm not enough. You learn to push parts of yourself down just to keep that connection. And that creates this deep wound, this feeling of being somehow wrong that you carry with you. And this leads us right to the most common and often the most heartbreaking dynamic, where all these childhood patterns crash into each other, the anxious avoidant dance. This quote from Jessica Baum just says it all. This isn't a conscious choice. You've got two people who really do want love, but they get pulled into this unconscious dance where their old childhood defenses are in direct conflict. And the tragedy is, the very thing each person does to try and feel safe is the exact thing that triggers the other person's deepest fear.
This whole dynamic is fueled by opposite strategies. The anxiously attached person uses what are called protest behaviors, desperately trying to close that distance. They might blow up your phone or threaten to leave just to get you to react. And on the flip side, the avoidantly attached person uses elimination behaviors to create space and feel safe. Things like being vague about commitment or just emotionally checking out.
Baum has the perfect metaphor for this: the octopus and the turtle. Picture it. The anxious octopus is reaching out with all its arms, terrified of letting go. But to the avoidant turtle, that feels completely suffocating, so it pulls deep inside its shell to feel safe. You can see the cycle, can't you? The more the octopus reaches, the deeper the turtle hides.
Wow, it can feel like a totally hopeless cycle, right? But here is the really good news. It's not. You are not destined to repeat this dance forever. There's a clear way out, a path toward feeling secure. The real question is just, how do we start?
The goal here is something called earned secure attachment. And what that means is, even if you didn't get that secure blueprint as a kid, you can actually build it for yourself now as an adult. Through your own healing work, you can create a brand new internal foundation of safety. Your attachment style is not your destiny.
This chart lays out the journey perfectly. The anxious pattern often pushes us to be selfless, where we're so focused on the other person because we're terrified of being abandoned. The avoidant pattern can make us seem selfish, building up these rigid walls to protect ourselves. The goal is this healthy, beautiful middle ground, becoming self-full. This is where your self-worth comes from within, your boundaries are healthy and flexible, and you can balance your own needs with your partner's.
So how do we actually get there? Well, Baum lays out 4 clear steps. First, you just have to acknowledge the patterns and do it without any shame. Then you connect with that little me and really try to understand, with compassion, where those wounds came from. Next, you actively build an inner nurturer. That's the adult part of you that can finally self-soothe and give little me what it always needed. And that inner security is what gives you the strength for the final step, practicing healthy boundaries.
And this is just such a critical point. We're taught to believe that love will fix everything, but what Baum makes clear is that love by itself is not enough. For true healing to happen, you need a relationship that is a safe haven, a place where both people are actually committed to growth. And that leaves us with one last thing to really chew on. We are so conditioned to look for that happily ever after. But what if we've been measuring things all wrong? What if the real goal of a relationship isn't perfection, but transformation? What if a truly successful partnership is one that helps both people heal and become more whole together?